Alright guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today. For this one we are going to do another little out and about video, and I'm here for you in Kyoto, showing my parents around the temples, and today is my 28th birthday, so I'm getting to do some birthday beers for you today as well. I'm feeling old, so you know I've got to drown my sorrows and things. But for this little out and about video, we're going to go and have a little look at Kyoto Beer Lab, which is actually really close to the main station. So we'll do our usual, we'll go inside, we'll have a look at the tap list, I'll show you the menu and all these things, and most importantly, we'll try some of the beers. Looking forward to this one, and as always, I hope you guys enjoy it as well. So this is it here. As I kind of mentioned earlier, this is just a little bit to the northeast of the main Kyoto station, if you like. But just look at the kind of buildings and stuff around here. I mean, this is really cool. You come out in the front street and you've got this little sort of kind of stream thing, which is it's really quite cool actually. I like this. It's kind of hidden away, this place, but you know, it is really nice. We're coming here just almost at sunset pretty much. But yeah, let's go in and have a little look at the bar and things once the biker goes past me. So yeah, when you come over here, you've got a nice little bike packy sort of thing. But yeah, you've got a nice little bar here. I mean, it's one of these typical sort of Asian bars where there's not too much in the way of space, but it's still pretty cool. So you come up to the bar and you can see they're brewing all of their beers just behind here, which is pretty cool. So, you know, really quite nice. And this is your kind of seating area here. There's my family just chilling over there, waiting for me. But yeah, up on the wall here, you've got the tap list. So yeah, they've got Rusty T Stout coming in, 6.9% ABV, green tea ale, which is pretty cool. A pale ale, a smoky beer, which I'm definitely going to try. I absolutely love my Rauch beers. The Tropical, which that one is a pale ale. Golden Boys, which again it's a golden ale. This one you don't see too many of those about anymore. This one down here, the 2019 Outer Cosmos, this I'm definitely curious to try. Double dry hopped IPA. And this one, End of the Beer, a West Coast IPA. I think this one is going to be really interesting too. A lovely lovely hot bill on that one actually. So yeah, let's go and have a taste of some of the beers and just see how we get on then. Alright guys, so just a little look through the menu for you here then. The prices here are pretty kind of standard for Japan. You know, half pint 700 yen, which is, you know, roughly about €7, something like that. Is it that much? Maybe about €6, something like that. And a full pint is 1,000 yen, which is, you know, £7.50. About €9, something like that these days. And here you can just see a little bit more closely the list here: the Roasted Tea Stout, the Green Tea Ale, Smoky the Oni, the KBL Ale, Tropical, Golden Boys, the New England IPA, Hazy IPA, End of the Beer, and then so the End of the Beer was the West Coast IPA, and then Outer Cosmo is their more New England IPA, and it's this one that we are going to kick off with just in a little second. But they've got a few kind of beer snacks and things like that: nuts, smoked cheese, pickles, fries, local bacon, sausages and stuff like this, karage, you know, just kind of standard Japanese beer snacks. But this is pretty much just a little brew pub place, that's not a kind of full-on restaurant and things. Over here you can see this is the symbol of the company. Apparently these animals come from the local temples and things, so they've basically taken their local culture and inserted that and used that as their label, which I have to say is pretty cool actually. Right guys, first beer of this little session then. This one is the Outer Cosmos, a sort of New England hazy type IPA. Comes in at 9% ABV, and you know, it definitely looks the part. Lovely kind of hazy, murky, orangey colour there. The head's died away a little bit. It was a sort of kind of creamy ivory coloured head, this one, but you know, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider its style basically. So let's have a look at the aroma and see how we get on. That's quite nice. Straight away, there's something that makes me want to say there's mosaic in this. Maybe a little bit of galaxy. It's got a really sort of kind of passion fruity, sort of mangoey type aroma to it. A little bit of pineapple as well. There really is something that makes me want to say that this is galaxy that's in here. It could be something else like Idaho 7 or something like that. There's an element of oranginess to it. That could be a few things spilling a little bit. That could be mosaic. It could be like Sabro. Don't think it's Amarillo. It's a bit too juicy to be Amarillo, to be honest. It could be Waimea from New Zealand as well. But I think it's more likely to be Galaxy or something like this. But this is a really juicy, tropical, fruity smelling IPA. It's got a little bit of an almost limey quality to it as well, so maybe there's a wee bit of Equinox or something to this one. But on the green side of the hops, a little bit grassy, a little bit of a floral element to it, but mainly lighter and grassy. Yeah, I'd say the green side of the hops leans towards the grassy side of things. And the malt base, there's a bit of that kind of white breadiness, a bit of a wheaty quality there, and it has a little bit of pungency to it, but you've got a lot of nice kind of oaty creaminess, and there's something that tells me there might be a little bit of like a dextrose or dextrins to this. It's quite creamy, but it's not all oats that the creaminess is coming from, I don't think. A little bit of a biscuity malt in there as well, but overall, this one is kind of what you would expect from a New England IPA. Compared to other ones, I'd say that this is a really quite creamy and juicy smelling New England IPA actually. So yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy that aroma before you have a taste. But this one is the Outer Cosmos, double dry hopped New England IPA coming in at 9% ABV, or double New England IPA I guess you should say. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, let's go, Kampai.
From a board again, that seems accurate.
Right. That's pretty damn good, I have to say. I've told you before in these videos that a lot of Japanese beers, quite a lot of the time they're often modelled on, the old school German beers. But this is a proper kind of, straight up American style thing. It's quite cool to find this. The breweries are being a little bit more adventurous in Japan now. You've got the likes of Uchu Brewing, who are doing some really, really good examples of the hazy IPAs and some of the old school West Coast IPAs. This one's up there with some of the ones you'll find from Uchu Brewing and Izakadoya as well. They've been doing these beers for quite a little while too, but this is really, really nice. Yeah, solid beer that. So malt base then. Straight away with this one you feel a little bit of that kind of pale malty, white bready wheaty thing that blankets the middle of your tongue. It's not quite as oaty as I thought it might be from the aroma. It's got a little bit of oaty creaminess in the middle of the palate, but in the very centre of the tongue you get a little bit of a biscuity, almost caramelly note to this one. I think there is a bit of a carapils or something to this. It does have an element of crispness to it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's German malt in here, but at the same time it could have a little bit of an American Turo. I think there's a little bit of that, so a lovely biscuity, caramelly sweetness right in the middle of your palate, some oaty notes in there, and I do think there's a bit of a dextrosy, dextrin kind of note to this one, but it's a lot less creamy than you might think from the aroma. There's a little bit of that creaminess there, but not as much as the aroma would have you think. But the malt base is really well done, so thumbs up to Kyoto Beer Lab for this. It's a nice malt base here. Hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate there's a wee bit of earthiness, which is kind of what you would expect. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, that kind of smoothens out a little bit. You start to get some nice floral aromatic notes on the front corner of your palate. It does get a little touch spicy. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like some Columbus being the bittering hop of this one. It is only like 40 IBUs this, which is a little bit stronger than a normal New England IPA. But it does give you just that little bit of bitter kick that you want, especially from a big alcohol beer like this. Round the front curve of the tongue it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and as I always say, behind the front curve of the tongue it's a little bit more, that's where the juicy and fruity flavours come out. So for me, this one, again it really leans towards the juicy and fruity side of things. It leans a lot more towards orange than I was thinking from before. It's at the back of the palate you get a little bit of that kind of darker, more pungenty passion fruit, but as you move further forward there's a little bit of an almost mango-y note in this one. The passion fruity notes would be coming from what I suspect is Galaxy, and then as you move towards the front of the palate it's definitely a little bit more of a kind of tangerine and orangey note, and for me it's the oranges that linger there into the aftertaste, and it's nice. There's that limey note that I was picking out in the aroma isn't really there in the flavour actually. It's more kind of passion fruits, mangoes and sort of tangerine oranges to this one, but this is a lovely New England double IPA, and for a double dry hopped one as well it's actually very smooth. Sometimes these beers can feel a little bit dusty, but this one's really well done. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, mid-bodied, carbonation's very smooth. It has a little bit of a kind of oily mouthfeel to it as well. It's one of the smoother and kind of thicker New England double IPAs I've come across, but a little bit of an oily character too. IBUs, like I told you, in this one are 40. It feels a little bit spicy on the side of the tongue, right enough. Malt base is smooth, a little bit sweet, and you've also got some really oily, juicy, fruity qualities there. But a solid start to Kyoto Beer Lab. This one was the Outer Cosmos, a double dry hop New England double IPA at 9% ABV. Let's go on to the next one, Kampai. Alright guys, second beer then. So this one is it's called the End of the Beer. It's a West Coast IPA coming in at 7.1% ABV. The hops in this are Citra, Eldorado and Centennial. So Citra we know, mango-y flavours, lots of little complexities to it. Eldorado tends to be kind of passion fruity and it can have a little bit of a kind of pineapple-y note from what I remember. And then Centennial is your sort of classic lemon sherbety bitter hop actually. So I think this will be a really interesting beer. I've been complaining in a lot of videos on the channel that I've been really missing the kind of West Coast IPAs and stuff. So I think this will be a really interesting one to try. So as you can see, this one's a nice kind of rich golden amber. I think on the camera this is actually looking quite similar to how the Outer Cosmos turned out, but trust me, this is clearer than the other one. It's just the angle and the light and stuff like this. This is a nice kind of medium amber colour. The head on this one again is a little bit of a sort of creamy ivory colour. It's fading away just down to a very thin foamy layer. Not too much carbonation visible, but you know, you tend to get that when it comes to tap beers and things like that. But let's look at the aroma and see how we get on. So yeah, straight away with this one, you smell the difference between this and the New England. Lots of nice kind of there's a nice kind of bready base to this one, but on top of that you get the sweet caramel, and that's a lot more prominent. Definitely a bit of a biscuity quality in there as well. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if there is American Turo in here. I said the same about the Outer Cosmos, but that one was definitely a smoother kind of more New Englandy type thing. This one is a straight up light bready, more sweet and caramelly and biscuity note. Green side of the beer, the hops, this is quite grassy. Again, it's quite grassy. There's a little bit of a floral quality in there, but the impression I have from this one, I think they're adding the hops quite late in the brew because this really leans towards that nice juicy side of things. The floral qualities in this one, I don't think they're actually as prominent as they were in the New England IPA, which is quite interesting actually, particularly when it's a West Coast IPA and they would add the hops early on to give you more bitterness. It says on the wall over there that this one is a 55 IBU beer. So yeah, nice bit of floral quality, but mainly grassy, as I said. On the fruity side of things, you definitely get a nice kind of passion fruity, mango-y type note. That's the Eldorado and the Citra kind of playing with each other. There's a bit of a lychee kind of gooseberry thing to this as well, which is the complexities that you'll get from the Citra. There's a nice little bit of a lemon sherbety quality in there as well, which again is the Centennial, but I think it's more passion fruity, mango-y, and it's got that gooseberry lychee sort of thing to it as well, which is really nice. It's a very juicy smelling IPA, this one again. The aroma's not overly dissimilar from the Outer Cosmos that I reviewed for you just a second ago, you know. It's apart from the slightly stronger caramel, the aroma is really pretty similar. So yeah, let's take a look at the taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the End of the Beer, 7.1% IPA from Kyoto Beer Lab here in Kyoto, Japan. Slanjin School, Helpai. Again, that's really pretty damn solid, I have to say. It's a little bit, you know, you get the taste of this one straight away. You can tell it's a little bit more bitter than the last one, and that was the reason why I had this second. But it feels a lot. The mouthfeel of this one's a lot different. It comes across as a lot cleaner, which is kind of interesting. It's definitely this one to me strikes me as being a little bit more sessionable, which is interesting because it's not quite as high in alcohol right enough, but the New England IPAs, it's all about drinkability. This one to me, pardon me, is a little bit more kind of bitter and crisp, if you like. That's interesting. So yeah, middle of your palate then you can feel a little bit of that nice bready quality there. Not quite as thick, but then the other beer was 9%, remember? This is a bit lighter. But you get that nice little bit of a kind of pale malty base in the beer. In the very centre of your palate, there's a little bit of a rich caramel as you move out from that a little bit more kind of biscuity and things, but the further you go into the aftertaste, this one is a little bit more kind of it's definitely a little bit more kind of crisp and things. It's quite, the sort of breadiness of the malt base comes out really quite nicely, I have to say. It's the malt base in this is a lot lighter and just a lot crisper than the New England beer was. Hoppy side of things, teeny bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate. As you come further forward, definitely more kind of spicy and floral. All the hops you're getting in this beer are high in alpha acid, so it's not surprising. Round the front curve of the palate, it's just that little bit lighter and grassy, and again, behind the front curve of the tongue, it's got some nice kind of fruity, juicy notes as well. To me, this one is really quite zesty and citrusy as well. At the front of the tongue, you get a really nice kind of lemony quality to the beer, but behind that, at the back of that fruity part, it's definitely passion fruity. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit more mango, and then further into the aftertaste, you get those lychee and kind of gooseberry notes that I was talking about. I think some of the citra qualities in this are amplifying the centennial qualities, a little bit of a kind of lemony, zesty sort of thing. So that's quite a nice little touch to this beer, I have to say. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say that this beer, it's quite mid-bodied. This one's leaning more towards the bottom end of mid-body. This is more kind of what you would expect from a Japanese craft beer, because I've always told you in these videos that Japanese craft beers, they expect them to have some degree of kind of crispness to them. Beer is seen as a way to kind of clean the throat with food and stuff, so this one is definitely a little bit more of a crisp take on the IPA, but again it comes across as really quite clean, which is nice. You've got a good bit of IBUs to this. I mean, 55, if I was blind tasting this, I'd maybe guess it was about 60 or 70, because there is that nice little bit of spiciness to it, but the malt base is nice and smooth, little touch of sweetness to it, and the fruity notes, I would say generally they're a bit more light, and I don't know if oily is the right word for it. Yeah, the fruitiness is a little bit more wet. It does have an oily quality to it, but not quite as much as the last beer. But again, probably because this one's a little bit lighter in alcohol. But a really solid take on the West Coast IPA. Not the sweetest malt base you're going to come across, more of a kind of crisp take on the West Coast IPA. But yeah, this one was the end of the beer, 7.1% West Coast IPA, and another really kind of solid beer on this one. We'll move on to the more malty ones for the next tasting. I'll catch you in a second. Cheers. Alright guys, beer review number 3 of 4 then. We're going to have a little look at the Smoky, the Oni, which is a Rauch beer coming in at 6.5%. So a little bit stronger than most Japanese beers that you're going to come across of this style. You know, there's the classic kind of Fujizakura Heights Rauch beer, obviously based on the Schlenkerla and other smoked beers, Spezial, from the Bamberg region in Germany. But one of my favourite styles of beer, I've talked about that on the channel often, that my whole love of craft beer began with the Bamberg Rauch beer. So always cool to try different takes on this style from different countries. But as you can see with this one, this is a lovely sort of coppery, almost mahogany type colour. The head on this one was very slightly beige. It's just faded away to be a very thin sort of foamy layer. Carbonation, again, not too visible on this one, but you kind of expect that when it's when it's a tap beer, of course. But let's look at the aroma and see how we go on. Nothing surprising about the appearance of this one. And straight away, it smells really nice. That's definitely done with a little bit of Weirmann smoked malt from Bamberg. You get the German qualities out of this beer straight away. And as I said earlier, German beer has had a big influence on Japanese Jibiru, or craft brewing if you like. But straight away with this one, some lovely kind of brown bready notes to it. You get that lovely kind of woody quality, some beech woody notes out of it. As I've told you before, the Bamberg Rauch malts, basically they smoke the malt using by burning beech wood essentially, and you get that out of this one straight away. The Scottish malts that we have, the smoky ones, the peaty ones, they're a little bit more earthy and grassy. The German ones are a bit more kind of meaty and porky almost, I think is a good way to describe it. So yeah, lots of those nice woody smoky notes out of this one, some lovely kind of meaty elements to the beer as well. A little bit of a kind of caramelly note, a little bit of a biscuity quality as well. But I'd say generally the malt base of this one is quite brown bready. it sweetens up a little bit the more you smell of it, but it really put a nice meaty malt base to this beer overall. A little bit of a biscuity note as well. I mean, the more you smell of this, the more kind of biscuity and sweet it becomes, but really that big porky, barbecuey, meaty note that you get out of this is just absolutely lovely. You know, when you think about teriyaki and things, you can really see why this beer style caught on a little bit in Japan, as I say, with Fujizakura Heights Rauch beer. But yeah, the aroma in this is lovely. The hoppy side of things, it's that classic kind of Hallertau Tettnanger sort of thing, light, almost sweet earthiness, mainly grassy on the green side of the hops. And on the fruity side of things, you've got a little bit of you've got a very light touch of a kind of red fruity, figgy sort of thing, but those are kind of in the background. This is a big malty beast of a beer, I have to say. So if you get this one, take a bit of time to enjoy this, because the aroma is really quite authentic on this one. The Fujizakura Heights beer, for me, it's a little bit of a more kind of sessionable version of the Schlenkerla, but this one comes across as really quite big and authentic. This is quite close to the Schlenkerla Märzen, if you like. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Smoky the Oni, a 6.5% Rauch beer from Kyoto Beer Lab here in Kyoto, Japan. Skål, kanpai. Oh yeah, that's a really nice take on this style of beer. This one definitely, it's a little bit of an acquired taste. I just really grew to love this style quite early on in my sort of craft beer career, if you like, but this is a lovely take on the style. Try this one if you get the chance. It's a bit of a shame that this little brewery doesn't bottle. This would be an awesome beer to do a kind of more in-depth sit-down review with. This is a really solid beer in terms of authenticity, and that's what you want from these kind of beers. But yeah, straight away with this one then, middle of the palate, you've got that lovely kind of brown bready base there. It blankets the middle of the tongue. The further you go into the aftertaste, you get more of the kind of woody elements coming out of this beer. It has a little bit of a toastiness to it the further you go into the aftertaste as well. It's almost got like a bit of a kind of well-fired bread crust, and you can feel the middle of your palate just drying out a little bit the further you go into that aftertaste there. In the very centre of your tongue, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of sweet caramel to this one, and then as you move further out from the centre again, it's a little bit more biscuity, but then as you reach the very edge of your palate, you get some of the more kind of toasty and well-fired bread crusty elements out of this beer. It does get a little bit dry, as I say, the further you go into the aftertaste. If you go to the front corners of your palate and move in a little bit, it's definitely a little bit more kind of woody as well, actually. There is an element of nuttiness to this one. If you go to the centre of your palate and move forward, you will pick up a little bit of a nutty quality to this beer. The malt base of this, I have to say, is really well done, and that's the difficult thing to get right with these Rauch beers, is the malt base. And I have to say, Kyoto Beer Lab have done a really nice job on this one. So, you know, hats off to them. They've pulled this beer off really pretty well, in my opinion. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, it's a little bit sort of earthy. It's a kind of it's a little bit stronger than a German noble earthiness. I do wonder if there's maybe another hop in here as well. They might have used like Pearl or Hercules or something as something a little bit stronger than straight up Hallertau or Tettnanger. So there's a little bit of a pardon me, stronger earthiness to this one, but as you move further forward, that smoothens out a little bit. You get a little touch of floral aromaticity at the front corners of the palate, and around the very front curve of the tongue, it's just that little bit lighter and more grassy. Behind the front curve of the palate, you get a little touch of fruitiness out of the beer, and for me, again, that's pretty straight up. It's quite you know, it's a little bit figgy. It's a little bit like a kind of candied strawberry or something like that. It's quite difficult to describe that. There's a little bit of it's a very light blackcurranty, candied strawberry, figgy sort of thing, and that comes out on the very tip of your tongue the further into the aftertaste you go. But the main focus of this beer really is all the different kind of malt bases, actually. So the malt base is really authentic. In terms of the mouthfeel. This one, definitely mid-bodied. Carbonation is really smooth, which is what you expect from a German-style beer. The mouthfeel overall, it really is almost like, it's got a little bit of that Brauhaus smoothness, as I always like to call it. This is, in terms of a Rauch beer, you want authenticity, and it's got that, and then some. Malt base, nice and smooth underneath, a little bit of sweetness the further into the aftertaste you go. A little bit of hoppy bitterness, you know, must be about just 20 IBUs, something like that with this beer, and you've got a little touch of fruitiness too, but a really solid take on the Rauch beer style, and cool to find another one of these in Japan. You know, the main one that everyone will know is the Fujizakura Heights Rauch beer, but you know, Smoky the Oni from Kyoto Beer Lab, bit of a shame it's not bottled because it is really pretty damn good. Let's go on to our final beer taste and then I'll catch you in just a little sec. Just another little look around the bar for you before the final beer taste. And this place, you know, it really is pretty cool and well designed. They've got a few merch things on the wall here as well. There you can see Kyoto Beer Lab t-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that. You can see my jacket hanging over there, but really nice little bar, this one, I have to say. Right guys, final little beer tasting then of this session at Kyoto Beer Lab. So beer number 4 is the Rusty T Stout, which comes in at 6.9%. To be honest with you, this is one that I just picked because I've never come across anything that is quite like this before. So yeah, let's just have a little look at this and see how we get on. So 6.9% ABV stout, this one. As you can see and as you'd expect from a stout, it's this nice kind of ebony rosewood type colour. Coca-Cola is another good way to describe it. But the head on this one when it was poured was a sort of medium fawn type beige kind of thing. That's faded away to be a very thin foamy layer, but again, nothing surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, pretty cool, I have to say. So let's have a little look at the aroma and see how we get on. That's quite interesting actually. It's you know, you can smell the kind of tea in there. I've had a few like Turkish Delight stouts and things like that, and to be quite frank with you, I didn't like Turkish Delight. I don't drink tea. I've always said I'm not English enough to drink tea, but with this beer, it's a really interesting kind of infusion. I don't drink coffee either, but I found that I really like coffee stouts. So maybe tea stouts is something I need to explore a little bit more. Let me know some more about these in the comment section below. If you know tea stouts, let me know what breweries and stuff are doing these. But the aroma of this comes across as really quite infused. It's really interesting actually. So I mean, you get this nice kind of toasty black malt base, which is what you expect from any stout, to be honest, but within that you've got this really kind of herbal sort of thing, and it's not a million miles away from the kind of smoothness you would expect of coffee beans and things like that. There's definitely a sort of herbal aspect to this beer. To be honest, I don't know enough about tea to really comment on exactly how the tea comes out in this beer, but it's got a lovely kind of smoothness and just herbal quality to it. There's some woody elements to the beer. There's a little bit of brown sugar in there, like a really toasty, well-fired caramel. It's a little bit biscuity as well. Pretty much all the beers that I've had from Kyoto Beer Lab in this little session have been quite biscuity. I love how that goes together. This is really very nice actually. It's just a very infused aroma, and you'll come across very few beers that have this you know, that really kind of pique my interest in this way. This is just something that, to me, that is quite unusual, and that was the reason I picked it from a final beer tasting. So I mean, it doesn't do anything overly surprising for a stout in terms of the base, but the tea really gives it this very complex character. On the hoppy side of things, it's a little bit earthy, but it's not quite as dark as you might expect of an English earthiness. Remember, English hops are always a little bit more dark in their earthiness. The German hops are a bit brighter. So it's somewhere in between. It's almost like a can you say, a Belgian earthiness that comes out of this. It's got a little bit of the darkness from the English hops, a little bit of a lighter earthiness that you'd expect from the German notes. Some grassiness in there, definitely. Not really a floral quality to this one. And on the fruity side of things, it's a little touch figgy. It's there's a bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry quality to this beer as well, which is nice. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. This, in terms of other stouts, it's quite juicy and fruity. It's quite infused and herbal in the malt base. You're going to find very few stouts that smell like this. Let's just say that, to be honest with you. I've had tea IPAs and stuff, but never a tea infused stout. So this one should be really interesting. Let's just have a taste of this then and see how we get on. But do take a bit of time to look at the aroma of this if you do try it. This is the Rusty T Stout at 6.9% from Kyoto Beer Lab here in Kyoto, Japan. My final beer tasting for this little session. Kanpai. That's really pretty bloody good, actually. You know, I've been impressed with all three of the beers I've had before this, and again, this is pulled off really nicely. Solid stuff, you know. It's the tea, I think, really comes out in the aftertaste. This is one of these beers that will really strike you on the aftertaste. In the first part of the taste, it's really very nice, but you don't quite appreciate it until you've kind of comprehended the aftertaste, if that makes sense. So let's break this down a little bit. Middle of your palate, you can feel a bit of that roasty, toasty malt just blankets in the middle of your tongue. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of Carafa in here. I think there's a German element to this, and Carafa, of course, is one of the trademarked malts of Weiermann Brewery, Weiermann Maltery, should I say, over in Bamberg in Germany. There's something about the base of this beer that just makes me think Carafa. So you've got that nice kind of smooth, almost it's almost like a bit of a coffee bean quality. You can really feel that blanket in the middle of the tongue, but it's just a little bit lighter and bready. It's like a well-fired bread crust, to be honest with you. That's the base of this beer. You can feel these sort of herbal tea-like qualities just being infused into that. So this beer has a really interesting sort of backbone to it. There's not really a chocolatey element to this one. This is a more kind of, I don't know if it's right to describe it as a dry stout, but it's a really quite herbal and toasty stout, this one. I really like that about it. This is really well done. The other beers have all been very good, but this is probably the most interesting one of the four that I've tried, and that's I thought it would be. That's why I picked it. In the middle of your palate, definitely a little bit of a kind of caramelly sweetness to this one. Again, as you move out from that, it becomes a little bit lighter. It's more like a kind of caramel wafery note that you get out of this one as you move away from the centre of the palate. These kind of caramelly notes are the things that are covering up all the alcohol. It's 6.9%. This isn't the heaviest stout you're going to come across, but you still expect a degree of sweetness from it when it's that level of alcohol. Yeah, the sweetness of this complements everything else really well. The tea sits on top of the kind of roasty carafa type malts that I was talking about, the roasty bread crust thing, and the sweetness in the middle of the palate. This is again a beer that's all about how the malt base does, and it's been pulled off really pretty bloody solidly, this. So I mean, you know, all four of the beers I've had from Kyoto Beer Lab, they've been really nice, and this is the most interesting one of the four, so kudos to them for that. Great beer. Yeah, the malt base in this is lovely. There's a few sort of woody undertones to this, maybe even a little teeny bit leathery, to be honest with you. There's a little bit of a kind of leathery, tobacco-y type thing to this beer. You'll get that if you go to the centre of your palate, then move forward. It has a little bit of a leathery, kind of tobacco-y note to it as well. But on the hoppy side of things, it's pretty much what you'd expect. Back corners of the palate, a little bit of that darker earthiness. It's a bit English. I'd say it's in the flavour I was talking about in the aroma. It's more of an English earthiness that this one has, so it's a little bit darker. As you come further forward from that, it's a little bit herbal, which complements the tea aspect of the beer. On the front corners of the palate, it's a little bit. There is a little bit of a floral quality there, but it's not as bright as you'd expect from German hops and things. It's more English again. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like Kent Goldings or I don't know Bramley's Cross. I'm more tempted to say Kent Goldings. There's definitely an English hop in here, but round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and you've also got some nice kind of fruity elements to it as well. Behind the front curve of the tongue, as I always say, fruity notes to the beer. It's you know, when you take this in, it's a little bit sharp. You get some kind of almost raisiny-like notes to it, but the further you go into the aftertaste, it's a little bit more kind of blackcurranty and blackberry-ish. Maybe there's maybe a bit of figgy juiciness to it, but mainly it's sharp and raisiny at the beginning, a little bit more juicy the further you go into the aftertaste. In terms of the mouthfeel overall, I'd say this is again quite mid-bodied. Carbonation's really smooth. It has the sort of mouthfeel you'd expect of an English stout, this one. It's 6.9%. I would, this is quite similar to some of the traditional stouts we'll find in Scotland, actually. It's got a nice kind of dry stout quality to it, as I said. IBUs, I think this one has to be about 40 or maybe 50. It's got a nice dry quality to it in the aftertaste. Malt base does have a degree of sweetness to it and also some nice smoothness, and it's quite herbal in that sense as well, but you've got some nice sharper fruity notes to it. Overall, this is the most interesting beer of the four that I've had. So this one is the Rusty T Stout at 6.9%, the last beer of the night here at Kyoto Beer Lab in Kyoto, Japan. If you get the chance to try this, definitely do it. All four of these beers have been good. It really is just a shame that this brewery doesn't bottle. So as I always do, I'll give you my final thoughts on the brewery outside and we'll finish the video off. Catch you in a second. Cheers. Alright guys, final thoughts then on Kyoto Beer Lab. I had a really nice little night here with my dad. I got two really solid IPAs from both ends of the spectrum. Something a bit more hoppy from the West Coast side and something really nice and creamy and juicy from the New England side of things. The Rauch beer was very authentic, which is what you want from that beer style. And the tea-infused stout was great. I mean, I like beers that really test my palate and things, and I picked that one just because of how unusual it was, and it certainly played dividends. I really enjoyed having a little take on that beer. Big shout out to Hiroko and to Takara behind the bar. They were really good in terms of service. They spoke very good English as well, and as I've said in a few of these videos, it's quite difficult to find that in Japan. The English level isn't quite what you would expect here, but these guys spoke very, very good English. They told me about the brewery and the brewmaster and stuff like this. The brewmaster apparently is Australian, so I really hope that he's got a Japanese apprentice and stuff, and he's passing over some of that beer knowledge. Japan, of course, is very good at taking in knowledge from other places and tweaking with it and stuff. Itokodori, as they call it here. But this place is definitely worth a visit. You'll get some awesome beers here at Kyoto Beer Lab, and the prices and things are kind of what you'd expect. You're talking 700 yen for a half pint, 1,000 yen for a full pint. So about €8-9 for an American pint. £7.50 for at the same price of that, and 1,000 yen is kind of what you'd expect to be here. But you're going to get good quality beer. Beer in Asia is a little bit more expensive because they're importing the malt from Germany and the hops from America and Australia and stuff. But an awesome place to come and visit, and somewhere that I highly recommend that you check out. Kyoto Beer Lab, not too far away from Kyoto main station. But I hope you've enjoyed another little out and about video, and I'll catch you guys very soon with another one. Make sure you come and check this out if you find yourself in Kyoto. A beautiful city and some really good beers here. Until the next time, Slanja, Skull, Kampai.